Well, here we are, deep in another election season, a lot of unknowns. One thing we know for sure, on November 3rd, somebody's going to be president. And then November 4th, somebody's going to be looking for another job or a hobby. And I think at election time, too, we think about a lot of our presidents, and that's going to be the focus today as I talk to you about River of Doubt by Candice Millard. Thinking back again about what the presidents do when they're in their retirement, George Washington became the country's largest whiskey distiller. That was, I'm sure, a very relaxing way for him to spend his retirement. President Taft became the Supreme Court Chief Justice. Jimmy Carter, a president who's probably going to be right in the middle of the pack of best presidents ever, has turned out to be such a fine man. The Carter Center for Diplomacy, throwing everything he has into Habitat for Humanity at 90 plus. Won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, and he still teaches his Sunday school class, so quite a man. Number 43 was done when he was done. He didn't care about diplomacy, he didn't care about politics, he didn't care about a foundation. He is painting, and he is happy. Well, Teddy Roosevelt, who was our 23rd president, kind of took a different path altogether. His personality was such that he was driven by an overwhelming will throughout his life. Anything that came up against him, whether it was illness or a disappointment or a failure, he never gave up on anything. And he had a saying, it kind of characterized him, and he raised his children this way too. You push through, you see those big teeth, you push through. You don't go around, that's for babies. Babies go around, but you push through. Well, he had quite a few accomplishments. I want to just hit the three big accomplishments of Teddy Roosevelt's life. He settled and mediated the Russian-Japanese War. Might be a war you never heard of, but that's because he settled it and mediated it. He also was responsible for getting the Panama Canal done. That's not a real exciting thing for him because, where's the danger? Where's the gunfire? And then what we most remember him for is his magnificent conservancy of our wildlands and our beautiful, especially the West, and that continues until today, we hope. And so, these are people who were involved in different ways. Teddy Roosevelt, when he came to the end of his presidency, he was very dissatisfied. Roosevelt became president when President McKinley was assassinated. He was in office, Roosevelt was, from 1901 to 1909. Since he finished a president's term and then had his own, he certainly could have run again. And he was an extremely popular president. But he was just bored with it. There just wasn't anything, he didn't find it exciting. And it's hard to imagine that being president of the free world just wasn't quite enough. So he walked away from it. He said, I'm not going to be running in 1912. I am not your man. Well, come along about 1911 probably, he realized that he missed it. He missed it, and he wanted to run in 1912. Well, problem was, there was a president in the White House. The president that was in office wanted to continue to be president. He was the incumbent. That's what incumbents do. So he ran. The Democratic opponent was Woodrow Wilson, and here comes Teddy Roosevelt as a third-party candidate. We all know the story of third-party candidates. He was just a spoiler. An extremely popular president went to being the disgrace of the Republican Party. Not only did he not win, the incumbent didn't win, and Woodrow Wilson became president and broke the string of Republican presidency, which is all parties dream of, is having an unbroken stream of time in the White House. So now he added his boredom was topped off by this humiliation. This was just ego-crushing. He spent some time really in a depression, which was not like Teddy Roosevelt, until he decided that he was just going to go ahead and fulfill one of his life's dreams, and that was to travel to the Amazon. The Amazon now is not a deeply discovered, deeply traveled and explored part of the world. And in the 1900s, it was just a blank place on the map. There was nothing there. But his dream was to go across Brazil, into the jungle, to the Amazon basin, travel the River of Doubt, that was its name in English, travel the River of Doubt to where it joined the mighty, the magnificent Amazon River. So all of this that I'm telling you now, we have told you this, we're only on page 70. You say, oh, really? You've been talking a long time. Well, this is not the story of Teddy Roosevelt. If you want to read the story of Roosevelt, I think there's a book around me somewhere that says the story of Teddy Roosevelt, if you want to know about his presidency. But this is the greatest adventure he had ever embarked on. And it gave him a renewed excitement. His son, Kermit, was in Brazil at the time. So the two of them decided, well, we'll travel this expedition together. They had traveled the world. They had gone on safaris in Africa. And little did they realize, and this is one of the sad parts of the story, little did they realize that the Amazon was not Africa. Africa was Central Park compared to the Amazon. Kermit, too, unfortunately, had promised his mother that he would watch out for Dad. Dad was 55. Teddy Roosevelt was 55. And you say, well, he's a pretty young guy. Well, yeah, I don't know. 55 is probably the new 35 today. You know, he was getting up there at 55. And when you consider he's only going to live to be 60, it was pretty up there. And plus, he never promised your mother things like that. You'll be gone to her grave and to your grave, still trying to fulfill those promises. You know, you should be watching your feet in the jungle, but you're watching your feet and your dad's feet. So it was a bad plan. He also entrusted the planning for it, which to him, that was just boring details. He entrusted it to the wrong people, and you'll learn a little bit more about that when it becomes quite deadly and dangerous that he has done this. Fortunately, they did have a Brazilian hero. In fact, I'm sure, I know he's in their history books today, Colonel Candido Rondon, not a name familiar to us, but he was the greatest explorer in Brazilian history. And it was necessary to have a genius at the Amazon, someone who was so thoroughly immersed in the wisdom of it, because the Amazon was so horribly difficult to explore. I have to give you a couple of examples so that you will understand that the main character of our book is not Teddy Roosevelt. He's kind of the hapless third-rung character. The main character, who's not always a good guy, the main character is really the Amazon itself and the area around it, which was deadly, dark, nearly impenetrable, and a devastating place to decide that you're going to go on a hike. Well, just to give you an idea, because I think you need to understand something about the Amazon, and I hope there are those of you who've read about it deeply. That's my plan after reading this book. Every animal in the Amazon has evolved from another life form, from a lesser animal, to adapt to their environment. What we find in the Amazon is unlike any other place on Earth. The animals, insects, fish, creatures of the land, even the plants, have developed predatory instincts. Yes, survival is supreme, but they have developed to a level unknown in any other part of the world for their predatory skills. Examples. There's a little bug. It's just a little red mite. You can't even see it when it's on your skin. You know there's something itching, but you can't see it. The red mite will burrow in, and when it swells and when it's feeding, your arm and your leg will swell to the point where it looks like you're full of shotgun shot. It looks like the pellets from a shotgun. Your arm, your leg, your abdomen, wherever you're struck. It's extremely poisonous. There is a millipede, and you think, millipede. You know, you walk on the sidewalk, you see the little millipedes slowly going along. The Amazon has millipedes who shoot cyanide at a distance. Okay. And then there's the 6-inch beetle that plagues the Amazon. The 6-inch beetle, whose legs are so strong, if it attaches to a man's arm or my arm, It takes 2 men to pry off those legs. Those legs are so strong and they sink into your skin to the bone, and it takes 1 man on one side pulling those legs off and another man on the other side. That's what I mean by their skills and their adaptation is to this extreme predatory level. The fish, I can't go without telling you about a couple of the fish. Teddy Roosevelt thought when we get there, we're not going to worry too much about the food we pack because we want to live off the land. There will be coconuts, there will be pineapples, we'll just eat the berries. It's not that kind of jungle. And we'll fish. Well, fishing was extremely dangerous because you had everything from the 15-foot alligators that lived along the shore and could just run out and eat you, to the 3-foot Orawawa fish. And the Orawawa could jump twice their height. They snatched birds out of the air. The boats that they traveled in were 6 inches off the water. They were in dugout canoes. That was the only boat they could navigate these shallow rivers in, were these dugout canoes. And so don't you dawdle your fingers in the water, because if that fish can go 6 feet, he can go 6 inches and eat your arm. Piranha were the worst. Piranha, just imagine dagger-like fish with teeth with fins. That's a piranha, teeth and fins. A way they had adapted not only to their extreme predatory abilities, but also to being able to set up social networks. This is amazing to me. They communicated with, they made alliances with other species even. When the piranha attacked, for example, they would be in a cluster of about 100 or more, but they could signal. I don't know how. They signaled to other piranha and they would come and join on the feast. One of the men of the boat on the on the expedition fell into the water. And before he could be pulled out, he was one of their best guides too, before he could be pulled out, the piranha had swarmed and attacked him. And it's not like you're going to put your hands in the water and try to pull him out. You can't. When they found his remains, all that was left on his skeleton were his boots with his feet still in them. It's horrible. It sounds like it's been made up, but this is how grim it is in the Amazon. So besides all of the natural horrors, remember I told you about the men who did not prepare them. They were really opportunists. The men who were in charge of getting weapons and food were thinking about, when I get back to New York City, when I get back to Philadelphia, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to go on tour. I traveled with Teddy Roosevelt. They didn't order the right food. They ordered foolish things, thinking they would live off the land, which they could not. Got to the point where at the very end of their expedition, if anyone stole food, the resources were so low, they would be shot. And they, in fact, had to do that. They found someone who was stealing the few resources they had. As far as boats, they had boats, huge boats, in this mountain of luggage they brought. They were the wrong boats. They wouldn't work. They didn't factor in the fact that they needed to be prepared for shallow waters. They just got these really cool, comfortable boats. Didn't work. They were always making dugout canoes. So the food, the clothes they brought, foolish clothes, like for a day at the beach. When finally the horrible expedition ended, all they had were the clothes on their back. So it was quite terrible. Of everyone on the expedition, they started out with a good force of men and excellent guides. 3 of the guides were dead. There have been deaths to coral snake, which are deadly. One bite of a snake that's maybe not even a foot long, and you're dead. They had succumbed to diphtheria, malaria. These are things you just kept moving. Dysentery, you didn't stop. There was no stopping and resting. You had to keep moving. So their expedition dwindled and dwindled. Teddy Roosevelt himself faced horrible illnesses and running up against the things in nature that just almost killed him. He stepped out of the boat and he stepped onto and slid against a sharp rock. It sliced his leg down to the bone. He had, from that, he got an infection. He developed a fever. He became delirious. It was just a terrible event for him. Back home in New York, it would have been terrible and needed immediate attention. He did have emergency surgery right there in the jungle to save him, to dig out the infection, to wrap up his leg. So here, with all of these diseases, on top of that, Teddy Roosevelt lost 25% of his body weight. 25% of your weight is gone because this was so horrible. Again, had it not been for Colonel Rondon, who knew the ways, he knew how to meet, oh, and did I mention the natives? As you know, the indigenous tribes were extremely deadly. They did not ask questions. They just fired their poisonous darts, extremely poisonous, dead, boom, hit the ground. And over time, though he had won their trust, and they knew if they saw Rondon that he was not there to hurt, he was just passing through. Finally, after 2 months of this, slogging through this jungle, up the river, finally, 2 months, 1,100 miles, they met up with the relief party that Colonel Rondon had wisely prepared for when they reached their destination. Teddy Roosevelt, despite being reduced and so terribly ill, flashed that big Roosevelt grin. You know, howdy, everything, oh, we're all fine. He couldn't wait to get back to New York and tell his story, which he did do. But sadly, no one believed his story. Who would believe this? This is Teddy Roosevelt just spinning another yarn. So the very thing that was going to salvage his reputation just drove him into further derision. He never did see his journeys verified. 1927, a British expedition followed his route and found that, in fact, his maps were accurate and his journey was doable, and they were able to navigate the water to the point where the River of Doubt joined the Amazon. He died in 1919. Ironically, he died in his sleep. Vice President at the time, whose name was Thomas Marshall, said, well, you know, death had to come and get him while he was sleeping, because if Roosevelt had been awake, there would have been a fight. And I love that. I loved everything about this book. And I always think, you know, a good book will satisfy your curiosity. So, I couldn't put that down. It was good. It was good. But a great book will stimulate your curiosity. It will make you want to know more. I want to know more about the indigenous people. I want to know more about the climate change and how climate change has affected the Amazon. That has always been almost an impenetrable, unconquerable place on Earth. I want to know more, and I hope this will intrigue you enough that you will read The River of Doubt by Candice Millard. Thank you.